Good evening, and welcome to the lovely home of my grandson, Jim Foreman. My name is Mary Maria James Blades Foreman. Quite a mouthful, isn't it? I was born in Bishopville, Maryland in 1858, and when I was 11, my poor mother and father both died suddenly of diphtheria, leaving behind 8 small children. Sadly, we were divided, and 4 of us went to live with my uncle Ezekiel Blades in Barry, Illinois. That was where I met that young whippersnapper, Clay Foreman, and he swept me right off my feet. After I finished my education, I became a teacher. I knew a lot of young men in that time, but I just couldn't forget that dashing Clay Foreman, so I agreed to marry him. Now, my Clay was a farmer, and we acquired some acreage in Nebraska, and we moved there to start our farm and raise our family. There were no schools nearby, so I taught my children and the neighbors' children. I taught them the basic courses as well as music, which I provided on my small organ. Farming was very difficult, and the winters were unbearably cold. My Clay raised a bountiful crop of corn, but the prices dropped so low that it was useless to harvest it. That year we had to burn the corn to keep warm in the winter. Are any of you here farmers?
Yeah, my husband's a farmer.
Then you know what it's like to try and survive year to year with what the elements and the weather can do to you. Now, one day, we got a letter from my dear, dear brother in New Bern, North Carolina, asking us to come and help him with his lumber business. What a miracle. I can tell you, we did not wait for a second invitation. We packed up our family and we headed south to New Bern. I will always believe that it was divine providence that led us to that lumber business, because a lumberman is what my Clay was born to be. The company did so well, it expanded, and we moved here to Elizabeth City in 1902. Now, do any of you here know what a dynamo is? Young lady, do you know what a dynamo is? It's what they used to call a generator. And when we moved here, Clay bought several generators and a lot of up-to-date equipment from a bankrupt mill. And soon, Elizabeth City Lumber Company was the finest, most modern company on the eastern coast. Now, our timber acreage grew and grew until finally we acquired almost 1/3 of eastern North Carolina's timberland, while we stretched all the way to the other side of the Albemarle Sound. We had tugboats pushing 3 barges of logs up the river across the street daily to our mill. Have you ever seen those barges go up and down the river?
Yes, I have.
They were quite a part of Elizabeth City's river traffic. Clay and I raised 6 wonderful children. Our 2 oldest sons were very instrumental in building what is now referred to as the lumber dynasty. You see, I don't like to brag, but let's face it, my 2 sons were geniuses. James Wesley was a genius at selling. You see, no matter how much lumber we produced, the company wouldn't be a success unless it was sold. He could sell that wood. Now, he left school a lot sooner than I would have liked, but he loved to read. He read all the classics, and with all of his traveling to sell the lumber, I truly believe that he became just as well educated as that person with a formal education. Sir, do you know how they get the bark off of logs?
No.
Well, back then, they used to have to roll the logs together, tumble them, and finally the bark would be knocked off. However, my son Roscoe came up and built this system with a high-pressure water. He told me, "Mama, you watch, this will peel those logs just like a banana." He was clever. He even engineered the generators to run electricity to all the houses on Pennsylvania Avenue. Then later, he took his Model T He took the wheels off and put that Model T right on the narrow gauge of the railroad track, and he used that car to drive up and down to survey our timberland. Imagine that! It wasn't long before all the railroads had surveillance cars on their tracks. Our house was the very first house next to our lumberyard at the north end of Pennsylvania Avenue.